Have you ever wondered if time travel is real? Maybe you've seen supposed evidence of time travelers and it made you wonder. Today, we are going to debunk some time traveling stories that you might have heard, so get ready to get skeptical. To stay up to date with something timeless, be sure to subscribe to TheHub for more awesome videos. The time travel murder. Solving criminal cases that take place in only one time period can be complicated enough without involving time travel. That's why forensic scientist Dr. Mike Silverman was so stunned when he encountered a real-life time-traveling mystery. A woman was found murdered in London, and upon examination, it was found that she had biological material underneath her fingernails, indicating that she may have scratched her attacker in self-defense. The material was analyzed, and the result entered into a DNA database, but the result was shocking. The DNA belonged to a woman who had also been murdered 3 weeks before this victim had met her untimely end. Both crimes took place nowhere near one another, and there was no evidence the two women had ever met, and both cases were being investigated by completely different teams of detectives. This strange new evidence had the detectives shaking their heads, as they imagined filling out a crime report citing time travel as a contributing factor of this crime. However, Dr. Silverman had other ideas. After confirming there was no lab mix-up, he traced both bodies back to a mortuary that they had been stored in for some time. It turns out that the same pair of scissors had been used to cut the nails of both victims, and although they had been cleaned, it wasn't enough for the new sensitive DNA analysis. Now, disposable instruments are used to prevent such a scenario. The time-traveling hipster. One way to make sure you hop onto the latest trends before they become mainstream is to use time travel. This photograph of the so-called time-traveling hipster went viral and seems to depict a man in a very modern clothes looking out of place in a crowd. The image is of the South Fork Bridge in Goldbridge, British Columbia, which opened back in November of 1941. This was one of many photos of this event, which made its way online and was displayed in a virtual exhibit called Their Past Lives Here from the Boulogne Pioneer Museum. We have to admit, this cool guy with the sunglasses does seem out of place and looks to be wearing modern clothes, but there is a reasonable explanation for this. Although he's the only one rocking shades in the photo, those sunglasses weren't unheard of at the time. Upon closer inspection, his shirt appears to be embroidered with an M, not stamped the way modern shirts are. Some people even believe that it's a Montreal Maroons jersey, an ice hockey team that disbanded in 1947. As for the camera he's holding, it looks more like a folding pocket Kodak than any modern camera. Called out. When working on a movie, usually set and costume designers pay a great deal of attention to detail to make sure everything looks just right. So having a time traveler chatting on a cell phone during a movie made in 1938 would be an enormous oversight. This video features black and white footage of a group of women walking down the street, with one of them talking into a cell phone which did not exist at the time. The supposed time traveler is Gertrude Jones, and she has a reasonable explanation for this that has nothing to do with time travel. She claims that the company that owns the factory shown in the video had a telephone communications department. They were experimenting with a wireless phone, and Jones was given one of 5 prototypes to test out. She's actually using her phone to speak with one of the scientists who is off to her right in the video. In 1928, a Charlie Chaplin film also appeared to show a woman speaking on a cell phone, but upon closer inspection, it's believed the object she's holding closely to her ear is actually a portable hearing device and not a phone. Like phones, hearing aids have come a long way since that time, which is why so many people didn't recognize the older version. The Mormon CD-ROM. If you've never had the pleasure of seeing the Book of Mormon, you might be unfamiliar with the story regarding Joseph Smith and his golden plates. Basically, the story goes that the prophet Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon using a set of golden plates. The golden plates are said to be depicted in this 1800s painting in which Joseph Smith shows the plate to his 8 witnesses. However, instead of stacks of gold, some people believe that Smith is actually showing them CD-ROMs filled with information from the future. Could Joseph Smith have traveled forwards and then back in time, making his fantastical claims more plausible? After all, descriptions of the plates claim that they were composed of thin metallic pages that are engraved on both sides. However, people with a keen eye for detail believe that the image is actually showing Smith holding a box with a glass lid and not a stack of CDs. They did in fact have boxes back then, no time travel required. The Time Traveler's Watch. In 2008, a photo quickly went viral, showing a Swiss watch that was supposedly found in an ancient Chinese tomb. When scientists opened the completely undisturbed coffin that was 400 years old in Shanxi County in China, they were shocked by what they found. Inside the coffin was a tiny watch, with its time permanently frozen at 10:06, and the word Swiss engraved on the back. Finding a futuristic object from elsewhere in the world seemed to be a clear indication of time travel, and many people jumped to that as the most likely explanation for this strange case. Even reputable news sites shared the story, despite the fact that the discovery was never verified, and curiously enough, the watch never made its way into any museum, nor was it examined by actual scientists. That would be because the whole thing was a hoax. The Swiss watch was a clever but fictional addition to the original photo of the tomb, and not a futuristic timepiece from a time traveler with a penchant for exploring. Rudolph Fentz. For decades, the strange and baffling case of Rudolph Fentz remained a mystery. Legend has it that at 11:15 p.m. on June 1951, people strolling through New York City noticed something unusual. In Times Square, there was a confused and disoriented young man in his early 20s, standing in the middle of an intersection before his life was swiftly cut short when he was hit by a passing taxicab. When his body was taken away, many curious things were discovered on his person, including a copper token meant to be exchanged for beer that was so old, nobody had ever seen it before. He also had a bill for the care of a horse and carriage, $70 in old banknotes, and a business card with the name Rudolph Fentz. All of these items were in brand new condition, and the address on the business card last belonged to a Rudolph Fentz in 1939. Could it be that Rudolph traveled a decade into the future, only to be struck down before he returned home? In 2005, someone finally got around to fact-checking this story, and discovered that what had been reported as fact was actually part of a science fiction story from 1951. Since its original publication, it had been reprinted, removing any mention of it being fictional. Andrew Carlssin. When Yahoo News published an article about an alleged time traveler, people just couldn't get enough of the story. It told of a man named Andrew Carlssin, who drew the attention of the SEC because of his incredibly lucrative investments. It was alleged that in 2003 he made 126 high-risk stock trades, but every last one of them ended up being wildly successful. When you grow an investment of $800 into $350 million, that's the type of thing the SEC notices. Once he was arrested for insider trading, Carlssin confessed that he was a time traveler, and that's where he got his advanced knowledge from. He pleaded for leniency, offering to tell officials where Osama bin Laden was hiding or giving them the cure for AIDS. All he wanted was to be allowed to return to his time craft, which he refused to reveal the location of. The story spread like wildfire, and most people didn't bother to check the original source of the story before Yahoo got their hands on it. That's right, this was a story from the Weekly World News, a satirical newspaper famous for publishing stories about Bigfoot and Bat-Boy. Billy Meier. Unlike some of the other stories, this one is so absurd that it's a wonder it ever fooled anybody. Even people who claim to study UFOs believe that this story is a bit much. Billy Meier claimed to be in contact with extraterrestrial beings and had many fantastical stories involving flying saucers and alien contact. He told of an alien race known as the Plagiaran and claimed that they were capable of time travel and took him along on some of their jaunts through history. With them, he visited ancient Mars, prehistoric Earth, and even spent some time hanging out with Jesus. He even had some photos of their spacecraft and the dinosaurs, so clearly this actually happened. Well, except for the spacecraft was really just a decorated trash can lid, and the dinosaurs were really just blurry photographs of a book called Life Before Man, which featured drawings of dinosaurs. If you were interested in hooking up with any of the Plagiaran girls that he had photos of, you'll be disappointed to know that they were really photos of dancers from the Dean Martin show, which he captured off his television screen. Nicolas Cage. Actor Nicolas Cage has been in many unique roles over his acting career. However, he was probably wondering where his life took a turn when he all of a sudden found himself fielding questions about whether or not he's a vampire. And for the record, Cage insists that he is most certainly not a vampire. But vampirism or time travel seemed the most likely of explanations to some when a mysterious old photo of who appeared to be Nicolas Cage surfaced. The photograph was being sold by an antique dealer named Jack Mord, who claimed that there had to be something otherworldly about Cage since he was clearly the man in this old photograph. He was so confident in Cage's time travel abilities that he claimed that anyone who wanted to purchase the photo for $1 million would have the rights to have a photography expert examine it prior to money changing hands. We know that the photograph was taken in Bristol, Tennessee around 1870, and he's thought to be a Confederate Civil War prisoner. Why would the seller concoct this story? Well, $1 million price tag for one, and it wasn't Jack Moore's only attempt at selling time-traveling snake oil to the public. John Travolta. What are the odds that antique dealers would be the people to reveal what celebrities are capable of time traveling? Pretty good if you ask Jack Mord. He collaborated with a fellow dealer known only as Fawn, who claims to have a photo proving that actor John Travolta is capable of time travel. As proof, the pair produced a picture of a man that bears a striking resemblance to Travolta. The picture was taken 150 years ago, and Fawn claims it has not been altered in any way and listed it at $50,000, which is way cheaper than buying a picture of possibly vampire Nicolas Cage. However, the photos were suddenly removed from eBay, and Fawn confessed that the sellers had made up the whole thing. She claimed that the photos were 100% authentic, but that they're just not Travolta and Cage. The ruse was just for fun. We're guessing this is the same sort of story that explains the photo of Jennifer Lawrence and her supposed time traveling. They didn't expect that sort of notoriety that they received, and as an additional bummer, neither seller got anywhere close to their asking price. Come on, if Travolta could travel back in time, would he still appear in the movie Wild Hogs? Do you believe that time travel exists? Tell us your opinion in the comments section. After all, there are a lot more stories and fantastical claims out there that need to be investigated. To learn more, be sure to like this video and subscribe to The Hub for more. We'll see you next time.